Welcome to Carnivore Wellness. I'm Rebecca, and in this video, I will share my path towards becoming a carnivore. It started with dry January. I dabbled in intermittent fasting. I tried and committed to a low-carb ketogenic diet before ultimately landing on the healing powers of the carnivore diet. Let's jump right in. Before I began my healing journey at the start of 2022, I was a train wreck of hormones, emotions, and physical health and well-being. After having my two children, I continued to suffer with postpartum depression and anxiety. My outlook was bleak. My mood was low. My inability to focus, to function, to engage socially took over a lot of my lived experience and made it hard for me to enjoy the simple things in life. I often found myself regretting my role as a mother and struggling to show up and be the person and the mother that I always hoped I could be. I also struggled physically. My back always ached. My muscles would pull and get sore, and my joints ached, my knees would crack, and I didn't want to get down on the floor and play with anybody. I was so tired, fatigued, run down, and in a poor state of health. I also had a lot of digestive issues. I turned 31 in November of 2021, and immediately, within a couple days, pooped my pants. But this was a good wake-up call to me that my digestive health was in trouble. I've struggled before with digestive issues, and this was yet another instance of my gut not being able to function properly, heal itself, and provide my body with proper absorption of nutrients. Speaking of nutrients, I probably had very few in my system at that time. I leaned on my vices. So from the time I woke up in the morning, I would start drinking coffee, usually with honey and cream. Before long, I was snacking on sugar all day long, adding in a few more cups of coffee, some more handfuls of sugary snacks all day long. And by the end of the day, after being a stay-at-home parent to two young children, deserved to have however many drinks of alcohol I could consume before falling asleep. So I'd crack open a beer or open a bottle of wine, and 4-5 drinks later, drift off into a restless sleep that was constantly interrupted by my waking children, only to wake up the next day and begin the cycle all over again. My hormones during this time got really out of whack. My cortisol was high from the high coffee, from the insulin spikes, from the sleepless nights, and from the occasional high-intensity interval training workout I would pepper in, thinking that this would help mitigate my sugar consumption effects. I was in a fight or flight response mode. I did not feel good. I did not feel calm, and ultimately, between the high insulin spikes and the high cortisol, my hormonal balance shifted to a state of estrogen dominance. I was having hot flashes, night sweats, my hair was falling out. I was noticing a lot of fine lines and wrinkles appearing on my skin. My nails were brittle and would peel and flake, and I had brain fog. I couldn't focus. I was very, very irritable with mood swings, and especially at high estrogen times of my monthly cycle, right before ovulation and a few days before my period, I turned into what I referred to as a rage monster, where my temper would flare. Another vice I leaned on during the postpartum anxiety and depression and rage monster days was the heavy use of marijuana. I found that the marijuana use would take me from a high-strung, angry, raging bull down to a calm, gentle, kind, more pleasant state of being. So I'd up my system, stimulate my system with coffee, I'd keep it chugging along with sugar, and I'd bring it back down to a sense of normalcy and calm, though it was a false one with the marijuana use. And of course, finishing off the day with alcohol because I felt like I deserved it and needed a way to escape. This state of poor health is how I started the year in 2022. I knew I needed a change. I knew I needed to shake things up. The most glaring issue for me was my alcohol consumption. So I started the year with dry January. That's the idea of eliminating and abstaining from alcohol for the duration of a month to allow your body to reset and benefit from not consuming toxins every day. I did see noticeable improvement in my anxiety and especially in my sleep. And I felt better, more calm, less irritable. And there is something to be said for waking up each day without a hangover. After dry January, I looked in the mirror having expected to have lost a few pounds. I thought I could lose some of that lower gut mom weight that had accumulated, likely due to the high estrogen that I was experiencing. That lower belly fat did not budge. If anything, it increased. And that's because when I replaced my alcohol vice with sugar, I continued to consume a lot of nutrient devoid food. And the sugar did nothing to help my lower belly bulge. So I knew I needed to take it another step. Well, I hopped online, Googled how to lose weight, and what popped up but intermittent fasting. I thought, okay, great. I will just compress my eating window into a limited number of hours each day, and I'll be able to eat whatever I want during that time frame and still lose that fat. But that was not the case because I had wrecked my body to the point that I became metabolically inflexible. I could not go more than, I'd say, 7 or 8 hours without food. Basically, I ate from the minute I woke up, which was early because my kids would get me up early by 4:30 or 5. I'd start with coffee, honey, and cream, and then move into breakfast soon after. And as soon as I'd put the kids to bed at night, 8:30, 9 o'clock, I was snacking on something sweet. So my body was not used to or able to go without food for long stretches of time. When I tried to push that fasting window, I was met with resistance in the form of intense irritation, rage, mood swings, crabbiness, headaches, fatigue. I could not do it. My body was not able to switch over its metabolic machinery into the fat burning stage. Well, this was a huge wake up call for me because being metabolically inflexible at the ripe old age of 31 seemed pretty dangerous, that this would lead to chronic inflammation and disease. What I didn't realize was at the time I already was experiencing that chronic inflammation and really was setting the stage for long-term health issues. I dove into the ketogenic diet, the low-carb diet where your body begins to burn fat as fuel rather than sugar. The first 11 days on the ketogenic diet, I don't know how I got through it looking back. I white knuckled every single craving, every single minute of every single day for that 11 days. I kept reading online about other people's experiences. Within 3 or 4 days, you won't have cravings. Within 3 or 4 days, the headaches, the fatigue, the irritability, it'll go away. That was not the case for me. My body was so dependent on sugar and the continued input of carbs and frequent snacking that I had to just grit my teeth and bear it. I did continue eating a ketogenic diet, a lot of tracking, a lot of restricting because I was still hungry. So my binge eating behaviors, which I've had for as long as I can remember, continued to rear its ugly head. I found food vices at every corner and I would binge on them. During that time on the ketogenic diet, I had heard of the carnivore diet. And I distinctly remember standing in the kitchen and telling my husband, there is no way I would ever do that. It's way too restrictive. A carnivore diet is too extreme. That can't even be healthy to only eat meat and eliminate fiber. Everyone needs fiber, right? So I dismissed it at the time that I first heard about it. Old habits die hard, and it's hard to open your mindset up to new ideas, especially when they fly in the face of everything that we've been taught about health. I continued on my keto journey for about 4.5 months. The last month of my ketogenic diet, I was traveling with my husband and children. During that time, I decided to give up the tracking and I found myself eating a pretty meat heavy diet. That was what was satiating. By the end of that road trip, I had seen a few more times in a few more places on the internet where folks who had been previously following a ketogenic low carb diet in its typical form were experimenting with the carnivore diet and seeing a reduction in carb cravings and were suddenly living life craving free. They also were feeling well and talking about these health benefits. And I tried the carnivore diet for 3 days. I figured I can commit to 3 days. We'll just see. So I started with my burger patties and eggs, and within a handful of days, 3 days, I had no more carb cravings. I did not need to go and indulge and binge. I was satiated. I didn't snack. The meals that I made me feel full. Within that same 3-day period, especially within the first week, I noticed a significant reduction in bloating. I was no longer bloated. All of a sudden, I felt like I had stumbled onto something that would provide me with a path forward. I had spent a lot of the last few months of my ketogenic diet feeling like, man, I cannot keep this up. This isn't sustainable. I have to track. I have to battle cravings. I am so restricted. After a month or so on carnivore, I felt so much food freedom. I didn't have the cravings and I didn't feel restricted. I suddenly had clear guidelines on what I could eat and what I couldn't eat. It was very simple and it empowered me to continue to eat in a way that made my body feel good. My anxiety lowered within the first couple of weeks, and I saw a lot of other victories during that time as well. But the anxiety, the thing that had been hanging over my head for so many years since I first had children, was gone. The depression was lifting, and my hormones were coming back in balance. I noticed that I wasn't nearly as irritable and rage-filled as I would be during those high estrogen times of my cycle. I was calm, and this to me was a very clear sign that my hormones were regulating and coming back into balance. Folks have said to me, I can't believe you have that kind of willpower. I could never do that. But the thing is, it has taken very little to no willpower. As I've nourished my body, those carb cravings are gone, and I only desire to eat carnivore foods. I've gained so much more confidence. And this all comes on the heels of gaining fat and accumulating fat while on the carnivore diet. I would love to say that starting the carnivore diet is going to result in significant, substantial weight loss, fat loss, body recomposition, but that has not been my experience. Yet here I am, 7 months into it, happy to have gained weight. I've made another video detailing more about my experience with gaining weight, and I will link that down below. There's a lot of healing that takes place on this diet when you feed your body nutrient-dense, species-appropriate food. I highly encourage you to check it out. Maybe you're not ready to start yet, and that's fine, but continue to seek out more information on the topic. Continue to stay curious, ask questions, seek out the stories of others, and see if there are parts of their lives that resonate with some of your own. If you enjoyed this story, if you'd like to hear more from me, if you want to follow along on my journey, I encourage you to like and subscribe to this channel. Feel free to check out some blog posts that I have posted, carnivorewellness.com. I also have an Instagram handle of the same name, Carnivore Wellness. It is my goal through all of this to continue to provide you, fellow carnivores, animal-based, meat-based folks, or even folks who are just curious and interested in what is behind this way of eating. I encourage you to follow along. I'd be happy to continue to share my journey with you, and I look forward to making more of this content in the future. Please comment down below what it is you would like to hear more of, and I appreciate each and every one of you for your time. Thank you for sticking with me, and thank you for listening.